Today, we are going to learn about the poem The Cookie Thief by Valerie Cox. Let us have the detailed explanation of our poem The Cookie Thief, written by Valerie Cox. First of all, let us know about the poet. The poet of this poem, Valerie Cox, is an American author. She is famous for her collections of humorous and inspirational poems, prose, and limericks. Her famous verses include Valerie's verse, The Cookie Thief, The Plowing People. Moving ahead with the introduction, I would like to have a question. Have you ever had to wait for long hours to board a flight, a bus, or a train? What did you do to pass the time? Here are 3 options. You can have one of these, or you can even give your own opinion. Now let us see the explanation. Before moving ahead, let us know more about this poem. This poem is an interesting incident at an airport where a woman is waiting to board her flight. She buys a book and a bag of cookies and sits beside a stranger, reading her book. What do you think happens next? Let us see all the stanzas to find out what happens next. A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shops, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book but happened to see that the man sitting beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or 2 from the bag in between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. Look at the picture here. You can find a woman who was sitting there and reading a book, and she was engrossed in the book. The person sitting next to her took a cookie and was enjoying and was relishing it. She thought that the man has taken cookie from her bag, and she tried to avoid the scene by reading the book. So here are a few new words that came across. Cookies in American English is used for sweet dry biscuit. Plop, to sit down heavily. Engrossed, fully focused. She was absorbed in her reading because she wanted to avoid the scene with the man. Grabbed, took away quickly. Now let us see the next stanza. So she munched the cookies and watched the clock as the gusty cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, if I weren't so nice, I would blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered what he would do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. As the time was passing, she was looking at that man. Her stock of cookies was diminishing, was reduced, and she was getting angrier. She was thinking that if she wouldn't been so nice, she would have blackened his eyes. But at the end, what happened? There was one cookie left with her in the bag, and she was now nervous to know what will happen. The man took the last cookie and broke it in half. He gave the half part to the woman and took the half part. So this is how the story is revolving, the poem in the form of a story. Further, what happens? He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh brother, this guy has some nerve and he is also rude. Why he didn't even show any gratitude? She had never known when she had been so galled, and sighed with relief when a flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed to the gate, refusing to look back at the thieving ingrate. She was getting very angrier. She was feeling this man has no gratitude. He was not thankful. But finally, even after getting annoyed, she sighed with relief when her flight was called. And she took all her belongings over there and moved ahead, thinking about that ungrateful person. Now we are moving ahead to the last stanza. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat. Then she sought her book, which was almost complete. As she reached in her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. Just imagine, children, how that lady must be thinking now. What thoughts might be coming to her mind when she finds that her bag of cookies was with her. If mine are here, she moaned in despair. The others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. At the end, she finally realized that the man was very grateful. He shared his cookies with her, whereas the woman was thinking that those were her cookies. But it was quite late to apologize, and she was in grief, she was in sorrow that she found she was actually the thief in this poem. This poem gives us a beautiful lesson. In life, we invariably get into trouble because of our own assumptions that we take for granted. Maybe we should give others the benefit of the doubt. Maybe others have a good reason to do what they are doing. The woman in the poem simply assumed that the cookies were hers and assumed the man was the culprit, enjoying her cookies without so much as a may I or a thank you. She thought he was the cookie thief. Too often, we are quick to judge based on our assumptions, only to realize that we had hastily jumped to conclusions without any idea of the whole picture. Things aren't always the way they appear. There are chances that we are only seeing one side of things. Why not keep an open mind? Why not be a little more kind, a little less judgmental? Now let us talk about the rhyming scheme that we find in this poem. As we look at the first stanza, we can see that the last word in the first and the second line, they are rhyming. So here we can conclude that the rhyming scheme in this poem goes with AABB, like night, flight, shops, drop. CB, between, scene. This way, the rhyming scheme of the poem can be written as AABB. Also, if we talk about the literary devices that are used in this poem, we can clearly find the examples of alliteration. The very first line, a woman was waiting at an airport one night. So we can find the sound W has been repeated over here, the consonant sound. That the man sitting beside her as bold as could be. Again, the sound B is repeated. So we can clearly state that this poem has numerous examples of alliteration. Now let us have a look at a short video which will give a picture to this poem.
A man was waiting at an airport for a long-distance flight. His flight was delayed, and so he had a little spare time. He saw a deal on some cookies and thought he should treat himself. He bought quite a few cookies because he thought it might be quite a long delay. He took a seat near a man and started to read the magazine he also picked up earlier. He exchanged a glance with the other man and then tried to avoid eye contact as he went back to reading. While he was engrossed in his magazine, he happened to see that the man sitting beside him boldly grabbed a cookie from the container. He initially ignored the incident to avoid a scene. He grabbed a cookie himself and went back to his magazine. But the man seemed to have enjoyed the cookie so much, he took another one and started eating it too. This continued for a while, and with each passing moment, he began to get more and more irritated. Every time he took a cookie, so did the other man. When the last cookie was left, the man nervously took that cookie and broke it in half. He offered the other to the man and smiled. The man took the cookie and could not believe the other man's nerve. He was thinking in his head, how ungrateful could that man be? The other man then left and took the container with him. This guy couldn't believe what had just happened. He was relieved when his flight was called. He gathered his belongings. As he lifted his bag, he saw that there was a full container of cookies right there. He was totally shocked, totally surprised. It caught him off guard. He thought to himself, if my cookies are here, then wait, those cookies were his. The other man had shared his cookies whilst he was thinking he was the one doing the sharing. Whilst he was angry and irritated, the other man was being generous and kind. He felt so bad for what had happened, but he couldn't find the other man anywhere and didn't know how to apologize. Things are not always as they appear. Sometimes we make quick assumptions about people, circumstances, and situations. We judge them, label them, and put them into a box, not recognizing that there is a much bigger picture. Sometimes we meet someone in a particular state, stage, or phase of their life and stereotype them to be a certain way. Don't be so quick to judge. You never know when you might find yourself walking in someone else's shoes. And remember, the best apology is changed behavior.
I hope, children, you might have got a wonderful lesson from this poem. Do not judge too quickly. Never judge a book by its cover. I hope you all must have understood the poem very well and you will apply this lesson in your life too.